Going live. And pause that. It's Monday, November 29th, 2021. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight, it is our 2021 Technology Gift Giving Guide. So over lunch today, I went up and I got my booster shot. It was the first appointment I could get at the CVS on Steinway, like a little bit north of here.
I made an appointment. I went into my doctor's app, right? And I went to it like a couple weeks ago. And when you go in, it was like, hey, do you meet these requirements to be eligible? And I was just like, well, I know I'm allowed to say yes, even if I'm not, but, right?
Yeah.
So then they changed it like a few days before Thanksgiving. They just removed that question. Now, so I went in and it's like, you want an appointment? Okay, when, right? So I made an appointment and I chose literally like the first day appointments were available and it said Friday. And I'm like, oh, I guess right? And then, and then I go there, a Black Friday, and it's kind of creepy. There's no one there. It's like locked. And eventually, my appointment's at 12:10. At noon, someone does indeed come and try to open the door, and they're clearly a worker there. And I'm like, hey, yeah, I'm here. And they're like, oh, we're closed. And I look at the app again, and it's like, yeah, Friday, December 19th, not November.
One of my biggest fears in life is that I will someday show up at like an airport just on the wrong day.
Or December 17th? I don't know.
That is something that I am like I've never done it, but I am hyper paranoid about doing it.
I mean, no big deal. I just walked home and I'll just go back there in a couple weeks. But
yep. This one I did the CVS thing because my doctor didn't have any availability anytime soon. So it was easier just to do the CVS website.
I thought mine did, but apparently they didn't.
But the CVS website was annoying because it'll list all the CVSs like in an area that have reservations, but you have to or have the vaccine, but you have to click on each one to see if there's time slots, and they'll all say no time slots. Like it doesn't bubble that up.
One of those shitty systems.
Yeah.
Why is that a problem in just so many scheduling systems?
I think it's a combination of either they don't have UX designers or the UX designers don't care, or they ignore the UX designers. I've seen many times. Sometimes they just try to rush this stuff out and don't worry that much.
It's not usually a UX problem. The problem is, like, we had that problem when I worked, in ticketing, right? Mm-hmm. Is that, we don't control the source of the data. So I can't just query the database directly and say select where appointment is available.
Oh yeah, you want to get to that level? One pattern I've seen, because I deal with this at work too.
You're interacting with this other system and you could scrape it and then query your scrape, but then that could be out of date.
Yep.
So the only API call they give you is tell us a date and a place, and we'll give you the list of times.
But I wasn't using an aggregator.
Make another API endpoint available that says, or marks things as, sold out, or, no appointments available.
Yeah, but in this case, this is all, I didn't use an aggregator. This was within the entirety of the CVS ecosystem, start to finish.
The CVS people, right, their system that gets, like, what appointments are available might not be some centralized database of correctness.
Oh yeah, I believe that 100%.
Might be like each individual CVS has its own thing, and they have to query each one when you choose it.
I would bet they can't query them all at a high rate, or they go down or have a problem. So they only query on demand when a user clicks.
Or they just have a poorly designed system instead of a centralized database of truth.
I mean, I live in a world where there's no such thing as, like, my day job, a centralized thing like repository of truth. In fact, I've been responsible for making repositories of truth out of the ether to be the authoritative records for things. And I have a small number of authoritative databases I can trust, and I have a huge number of not untrusted in the like internet sense, but untrusted in the I don't control the SLA or the structure of those things, yet I need to rely on data from those things that I cannot or should not replicate locally without keeping it synchronized in some fashion. So it's a common problem in enterprise. And you know what? There's no good solutions to it. Usually there's some really stupid...
There is. It's if you have to interact with one of those such things, you should just take ownership of it and absorb it into your perfect centralized database.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there is a good way to deal with it, and then there is a good way to deal with it that can make it through the enterprise world of politics, interlocking dependencies, unwillingness of a company to invest in that kind of system, etc.
Or at least if the other person wants to keep owning it, right, then they have to, keep it up, keep it reliable, provide the queries so that I don't have to, do one at a time to check each individual CVS location.
Something I've encountered occasionally just out there, not even just at my company, but in capital markets overall, has been the problem where there's an old system people want data out of, but no one really owns that system anymore. Like, it's not being maintained, but it's being used. And the most common problem I see there, the pattern is specifically, no one officially owns it, and it's been mostly working fine. Nobody wants to own it, because if there's ever a problem, they got to deal with it. Whoever asks for anything from it or touches it in any way becomes its de facto owner, including all that baggage. So nobody ever touches it.
But I mean, it's up, so someone touched it last.
I can say professionally, in the past, at other companies, I have encountered systems that are owned by nobody. They just happen to have not had a problem in like a decade. In fact, at IBM, I encountered such a system.
Instituted like surface ownership. We made a spreadsheet that shows who owns each thing.
Yeah, it's
everything is now we know everything we have, and we know who owns each thing. I ended up owning too many things, more than I thought.
I had a conversation with a group at one point where they discovered that I am directly responsible for more engineering teams than is allowed. Anyway, it's fun that you're adjacent to the enterprise world that I've dealt with for basically my entire career now. But I got the vaccine. It was great. I got the Pfizer. I got the flu shot at the same time because I was due for that. Why not? You should get the flu shot.
I always get the flu shot. I have a Google Calendar reminder every single year, October 1st, to go get the flu shot.
So I got my flu shot, but the appointment system actually did work. And the way it worked was when I showed up at the CVS, they texted me, and I had to go into the app and click the button when I was physically in the store, saying that I am physically here. I am ready to receive the shot at any time. It was like an airline check-in process almost. Then it worked. Okay. It was perfectly nice. But biking to the place to get the vaccine, I start biking. It's really nice out. And it suddenly starts snowing like crazy on me.
It's really nice. It starts snowing. Yeah, okay. It was cold today. It was not
cold. Nice. It was like 40 something. That's perfectly bikeable weather.
It's cold.
I was wearing a t-shirt under my jacket in this ride. The only problem was the snow started like going up in the wind and getting in my face while I was riding.
Yeah, that's going to happen.
Yeah, but had it not snowed.
Like skiing.
Oh yeah. When I'm skiing, you know what I wear? Big honking goggles.
So if you don't wear those, you don't like it?
Depending. I mean, spring skiing, it's usually not snowing. I'll ski in like shorts, maybe a long sleeve shirt, and just like my regular glasses, like no helmet or anything. But that's different kinds of skiing. It's usually like 50 degrees at that point. Anyway, there's some interesting news about the boosters, and there is significant and growing evidence that if you get your booster vaccine shot for COVID, not only does it restore the known waning efficacy of the current vaccines, but
for how long?
So there's at least significant evidence.
Do this every 6 months, every year? How long? I can
that's what everyone's trying to figure out right now. Like that is unsettled science. We're all going to learn about this together.
How come I can get a tetanus shot that lasts a zillion years, but this shot doesn't last very long?
Partly because tetanus is... One, you're not that likely to encounter tetanus.
Sure, but...
Yep. Two, our immune system is way more complex than high school taught us.
We know that.
Yeah.
We know that, yeah.
It's way more...
Which part of the complexity is responsible for one vaccine lasting my whole life and another one lasting 2 seconds?
It depends on what it is what your body remembers about that pathogen and what the body's response is to that pathogen. And for whatever reason, this kind of thing, our immune system just, I haven't seen that in a while. Probably not a problem anymore.
You haven't seen tetanus in a while. Yeah, it's like it's 20.
Yeah, but at the same time,
shot.
every 10 years, plus a bunch of times, because I kept forgetting when I got my last tetanus shot, my body was reminded about
I got it in
tetanus.
Australia. That's how I can remember. It's 10, basically 10, almost 10 years, 9 years tetanus shot. I'm probably still just fine.
What was the thing the nurse said to me once? If you can't
This
remember,
fancy mRNA COVID vaccine couldn't even last a year. Is that, come on?
if you ever have to answer the question, when was your last tetanus shot, and you don't immediately know the answer is right the fuck now. Here it comes. But the evidence shows that one thing we do know, when you get the third shot, that booster shot, assuming you're not immunocompromised or have something else going on, your antibody level and your apparent immunity is higher than it was at any point, including after your second shot. Like it boosts above and gives you increased efficacy.
All right, we'll see how long it takes before that runs out.
Yep, but go get your booster
5
shots.
days.
Because the other big news that we are not going to talk about further, because we know as much as you do, because nobody knows anything yet, but the World Health Organization has classified the recent Omicron variant of COVID as...
There's a lot of, I just want to say, like, I don't know too much about the Greek alphabet, right?
Yeah?
There's a lot of letters between Delta and Omicron.
Yeah, there's been a bunch of other variants that ended up not
How
being
come
that big a
one's
deal.
made a ruckus about those.
They did. But so one of them, I forget which one's which, but like one of them never really made it out of Brazil, so it didn't matter that much. Two of them, while they might have been a concern, Delta completely displaced them to the point that no one even bothered like worrying about them anymore. There've been a bunch of variants that just didn't end up being that big a deal in the end for a bunch of reasons. Yeah. So the problem with the Omicron variant is that it is spread rapidly. People are taking notice. Like my work just canceled, like all our travel. Bunch of countries closed their borders. Like recently, I think late yesterday, Japan closed its borders to all foreigners indefinitely. So regardless of how bad this variant actually is, all we know about it is that it appears to spread much more readily than any known variant up to this point, and it has a lot of mutations in the areas that are concerning. But that's all we know for now. I advise you, as a layperson who doesn't know anything about this stuff beyond what I just said, and even what I just said, I got from reading like 3 news websites, a Wikipedia, a Discord, and DMing with someone. But get the booster shot. If you're not vaccinated, for the love of fucking God, get the vaccination. And exercise caution. Wear masks. Avoid crowds. Like, do what's been working.
I advise you to, it's winter. This is at least in the Northern Hemisphere.
Yep. Play a lot of video games.
There's no reason to go outside except to get a shot. So if you're getting shots, stay inside. Why would you go out there? Well, even if there wasn't this new variant.
I mean, even now, I've only
go out until like next year.
Even now, like I've only been inside of maybe 12 buildings since COVID began. Like I just don't go anywhere.
I only got 2 days of work left after today. I'm done. I'm just staying inside. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, one of those 12 buildings
Not that I have
was
to go anywhere to work. I'm already.
Yeah, I am still required to go into the office 3 days a week.
I ain't going nowhere.
Well, so just stay cautious, stay on top of this, and if you have travel plans, keep an extra close eye on this because it's already causing significant shutdowns of borders, canceling of flights, etc. So,
Whatever.
Yep. In some other news, another thing I wanted to talk about. This happened a while ago, but it looks like it resolved itself before we got to talk about it. You might know there's a thing called OBS, Open Broadcaster System, right? That's what it stands for. It's open source software
used to do streaming, basically.
Yep, it is what I'm using right now to stream Geek Nights. It's widely used. It's extremely good. Like it is fantastic software.
Software.
Yes. So
there's plenty of software out there you can use to do live video, audio, streaming, routing, etc. But OBS is the free one that does everything, and that's like the standard that everyone integrates with.
Yep, and
it's free open source.
And it just so happens to be that it is also really good and in a lot of ways better than even a lot of commercial for money solutions, depending on exactly what you're doing.
Very good, and in some ways it's very not so good.
Yep. If you know a lot about streaming, it is just A+++.
Right. It's good enough that you can get it done, and all the alternatives that are like better cost a fortune. So it's like it's for the price to goodness ratio is off the charts.
And I've tried some of those for money offerings, and some of them, they're like OBS plus some stuff. Like they're just easier, they work better. Some of them are just worse, or
Yep,
more
some
like
of them are just worse. I
Yep.
think the only reason to use something besides OBS is if you're actually like a real TV station or some shit.
So in a Discord I'm in with a bunch of people in that industry and in the casting industry, like sportscasters, game casters, like all that stuff. Most of them seem to be using OBS, or they're using OBS and a hardware solution that is streaming to OBS.
Could be, you know, OBS could be mixed in with like
Yeah.
professional solutions. But yeah, I don't think that like if you go to a professional sporting event, that
Nah.
OBS is in the truck. But at a minor league sporting event, it very well could be.
Oh yeah. So Streamlabs, different organization. They used OBS code because OBS is open source. You can totally do that. That's like how.
Right. Streamlabs basically makes a bunch of products that help. If you are a streamer, you can use their products to like help your stream, integrate with your stream, add features. You know, I forget. They offer a lot of different stuff, but
Yep.
the one, you know, it's like those little someone subscribed pop-ups. They got a thing for that. You know, all that kind of junk. Right?
Yep. So Streamlabs used OBS code to launch their Streamlabs thing. Like, fine, that's totally cool. That happened with.
They made a fork of OBS called Streamlabs OBS, and it's basically it's OBS because they just took it's a fork. It's the same exact source code. Plus, they added stuff into it, you know, to integrate their products and also add some other features and whatnot. And in some ways, you could say it was better. You know, it added features OBS didn't have. It was still free. So some people used regular OBS and some people used the Streamlabs OBS fork. Just because they liked it better, or maybe they were using Streamlabs services, maybe not.
Yep.
Yeah.
And one extremely gigantic streamer, Pokimane, used it like pointedly. So that's part of how it got very popular.
I'm sure there were times where Streamlabs was paying streamers to maybe use that instead, or maybe streamers just liked it better for some reason. And also, I think their main business idea was, hey, if we can make a better OBS to convince people to use that, that'll provide a gateway for them to use our services that are integrated, right? Even though we're just making this fork of OBS and giving it out for free.
So they called this thing Slobs or Streamlabs OBS or SL OBS.
Which is, I guess, semantically accurate, right? In that it is OBS, like 90% of it, but it's their fork of it, the Streamlabs OBS.
So I'm going to quote a statement, because apparently there's a bunch of drama happening behind the scenes. And on November 16th, OBS, like the people who maintain OBS, were sick of it, and they made a public statement. Quote, near the launch of SLOBS, Streamlabs reached out to us about using the OBS name. We kindly asked them not to. They did so anyway, and followed up by filing a trademark. This went back and forth. OBS, they started talking about how tons of people would open tickets, complain to them about problems in Streamlabs, because they had normal people have no idea.
Most users from OBS's perspective, right? The open source people is that, hey, you are allowed to make a fork of our open source software. That's perfectly okay. But because you use the same name, we're getting complaints when it's actually your software that's broken and not ours. And also, it's like, yeah, I guess your name is semantically accurate in that, you know, it's like the Streamlabs OBS, but we have a trademark for OBS. We were here first, and you can't do that. And also, we said no.
Similar things happened way back in the day around Nessus and the tools that came before and after it, and also Wireshark and the tools that came before and after
There
it.
have been lots of instances of open source softwares and not open source softwares having to change names because of trademark reasons. A lot of Firefox forks having to use different names, like Iceweasel. There was GAIM that had to change its name to Pigeon. All kinds of stuff like that.
Yep.
So
You're still using that Phoenix browser. But there's also a situation where private companies would take open source software, package it up with a little bit of secret sauce, and then sell it. And while they would usually strictly comply with the license, they would also obfuscate that the open source software that existed did 99% of what their very expensive variant of that software did. There was a bunch of...
perfectly legal.
It is perfectly legal.
Yeah.
It's scummy in some cases.
Program, like, say, Audacity, right? The open source. I guess, is that GPL licensed?
I don't even know, because I'm 100% on the Adobe train at this point.
I guess the GIMP. The GIMP is open. You could take the GIMP, you could call it the Scott, and sell it. And as long as you're distributing the source code for the Scott somewhere and such, you can sell the Scott on CD-ROM to people, and if they don't know about the GIMP and that you're literally just selling them the GIMP with a different name.
Yep. So Pokimane, that Twitch streamer, basically called out Streamlabs and said, yo, fix this or I'm not going to use your stupid software anymore. And that caused Streamlabs to immediately agree to change their name. They issued a statement like, how long was this? Less than 24 hours after Pokimane was like, yo, Streamlabs, WTF. So I'll link to the article if you want to see the whole story. But
so the software, their fork of OBS is still available. They're still making it. They're just calling it just Streamlabs instead of Streamlabs OBS.
Yep. Now, my take is, this is just my opinion, that Streamlabs was definitely trying to capitalize on the popularity of OBS for Google Juice and maybe even capitalize on the confusion among users.
I think it was definitely capitalized on people installing theirs by accident.
Especially considering they asked and were told no.
Right. Not knowing that there were two, most users don't realize that there's a fork. They don't understand even that concept, right?
Yeah.
So they don't even know that there's one or the other. And also, two, like I said before, if they can get people to use theirs instead of the mainstream one, then that provides an avenue for people to end up using their services that they actually charge money for. Whereas if you use regular OBS, the Streamlabs is not automatically integrated.
Yep.
You're less likely to end up using Streamlabs services.
Yep. Which is interesting because it gets to sort of an aside that I've noticed many of the non-OBS pay or variant software that does streaming, usually their secret sauce is either it's like they do a one-click thing for multi-streaming, they do a one-click thing to really easily stream to like Twitch specifically, like they do things that just make your life easier, or they have heavy integrations with all the weird social chat stuff that gaming streamers are really obsessed with putting in their overlays. Like,
I mean, you're basically what you're doing. A lot of those kinds of alternatives are basically just making up for the fact that OBS comes unconfigured.
Yep.
So
well,
they're doing all this work of getting because the most common use case is I am a streamer who is streaming my face and a screen, and doing these specific things. So they get that specific setup ready to go out of the gate by default, so you don't have to do as much configuring, and you're more likely to succeed. And therefore, that's popular if you don't know enough about technology and you try to set up just regular old OBS. Yep. It's like, well, you're starting with nothing. Good luck.
And that second half of it is mostly around putting all the chat integration stuff on the sides of overlays. And I have an opinion there that I think is better for a gaming episode, but I suspect the current overload on a lot of streams of a million moving widgets everywhere and all this like ridiculous, almost over integration of the UI. That's cool. Like, I'm not going to do the old man thing of say that sucks. Like, stop it. I want my stream to just be a webcam and a screen. Like, no, I mean, even I made a nice overlay for GeekNights. I suspect the current aesthetic and graphic design of overlays that are popular in gaming will be seen within a decade as similar to the GeoCities era of web.
Yeah, I agree with that. Aesthetically, yeah. But some of those things have merit and some don't, right? So,
yeah.
I remember I was thinking, like, why would you put the chat in your stream when the chat is next to the stream on Twitch? What's the point of that? And there's 2 points to that. Point number one, if your stream is embedded somewhere, people can see the chat where the chat's not there because they're not on twitch.tv. And secondly, you might be multi-streaming. You might have chats combining together.
Yep.
And third, if someone goes full screen, now they can still see the chat. So it's not without merit doing some of those things. But yeah, the aesthetic of stream layouts currently is definitely going to end up being a nostalgic GeoCities type aesthetic.
Like some of it, the ridiculous effects that come in whenever there's like a new sub or something, I feel like those are driven primarily by the toxic monetization model where people are desperate to get those subs and they have to reward their viewers on stream to get them to sub in some cases.
Yeah, it's a psychological thing. Like, somebody noticed me because I gave them money. It's like, hey, I'm a gay, right? Who cares?
The one time someone sent us a super chat, the text of it was something like, I am paying $5 because Scott will be super pissed off that I did this.
Okay.
That was years ago.
you're so wealthy, you don't have the $5 to you just earn money.
So in another little news, and I don't want to dwell on this too much, I'll link to the article, but in Seattle, there is a quarter shortage. Physical quarters.
Okay.
It's hard to get quarters.
All right.
The problem is arcades, like the few arcades that exist, need quarters to work. But more importantly, laundromats. Every laundry machine in every stupid apartment building, with very few exceptions, still uses quarters. Now,
upgrade them to cards like they did in.
You might ask,
places.
didn't upgrade them to cards? Well, the card stuff, for one, they cost the people who run them a lot more money than just the old quarter systems. 2, they do break down more often. 3,
Okay.
unbanked and underbanked people, like people without smartphones, people with credit cards, just can't fucking use those things usually.
Mm-hmm.
And when they have an outage, nobody can do laundry.
Well, usually I find that if you go to a laundromat that has a card system, there'll be an arcade style machine where you put your card in, you put cash in, and it fills the card up.
Yep. But from what I've read, I did a little digging after reading this article. A lot of those systems are way less reliable than the companies would like you to believe. But also,
those systems are actually way more less secure than they would lead you to believe, because they're just they're actually storing the value on the card. If you can write to the card somehow, you could just give yourself money.
like in Shadowrun, when you
database tracking how much your card has, because then obviously the laundromat would stop working if the internet was out.
Yep. So choose your poison. Either smart people can just put fake money on the card, like when you hack a cred stick with more Nuyen in Shadowrun, or if Amazon East goes down, your laundromat stops working.
Yep, pretty much. Or take quarters as a backup for do the internet. I think that's really the ideal, is you do the internet method, and if the internet is down, then you allow quarters to be used.
But I guess I think my interesting takeaway from this is not so much why there's a quarter shortage or the specific problems here. You can read the article for that. Think a lot about, as a technologist, just in general. I know I've harped on this a bunch. A few weeks ago, I talked about the how to use pulleys and like practical knowledge. The quarter system of get quarters and use them to power things like laundromats, or like authenticate your right to use a laundromat. Those kinds of solutions are the kinds of solutions that make people's lives easier, faster, and cheaper than bleeding edge technology in many cases. We as a society are very good at focusing on bleeding edge technology and cutting edge technology and new technology. We're very bad at taking the technology we already have that works really well and using it to solve the problems a lot of people already face today.
Anyway.
And this is just another good example of that.
So the biggest tech news of the day, but there isn't that much to say about it despite it being huge, is the CEO of Twitter, Jack Dorsey, whatever his fucking name is, right?
Yep.
The crypto bro.
I have a very low opinion of him, both personally and professionally, if you couldn't tell.
Yeah. So he quit. So that's good, I guess, because crypto bro is out. I presume he's still the CEO of Square, which is they make the point of sale thing and they run Cash App. And they're obviously also all in on crypto because the CEO is a crypto bro. Right?
Yep.
So, so the good news is he's not CEO of Twitter anymore. He's still on the board for however long. You know how it goes. But the new CEO of Twitter is the former CTO of Twitter. What's the person's name?
I just had it up. Parag Agrawal.
Okay. But yeah, so this person is probably just going to be more of the same, because this wasn't like some outsider, right? This is someone who was already working closely with Jack.
Oh my God! Did the article on Weibo literally spell this guy's name wrong? Oh my God!
Wow, someone who Jack picked, right? It wasn't the board didn't pick.
Washington Post, you fucking spelled his name wrong. Anyway.
Wow.
That's
disgraceful.
That is absolutely.
But yeah, that's I guess good. There's going to be some amount of change at Twitter, because even if some companies you'll have executives, right? And you think, oh, those people are together, they're like on the same page, they're best buds. If you switch, if one of them becomes CEO instead of the other one, what's really going to change? And it's like, there's still two different people. There'll still be some kind of change.
Yeah.
But I don't know how big the change is going to be, given how Jack-like the new person appears to
Well,
be.
we have one indication from the way people on Twitter reacted to this change. Because, of course, a whole bunch of
You
people...
can't trust that.
Oh, no. So a whole bunch of people were just like, oh, now we can get the edit button, which is a terrible idea, and everyone who wants it doesn't understand the ramifications of that. Good Lord. But the right-wing nut jobosphere and the bots immediately reacted, flipping out about how Twitter is dead. R.I.P. Twitter was trending for a little while until Twitter...
Goodbye.
Yeah,
Good.
exactly.
It'll fix itself real quick if you leave.
The bots all started tweeting, like all the same accounts that are promoting NFTs and doing all the weird crap, the conspiracy anti-vax nutjob accounts, they all started tweeting about how, oh, now we got a woke CEO and they're going to further restrict free speech. Even like Jack was our ally and now we're fucked. And all I have to say to that is if that sentiment is even remotely true, or if it becomes true because the people who are that evil are influenced by these botnets, good riddance. Like the fact that the right wing is afraid of this guy immediately is at least a positive indicator. Not necessarily a sign anything will change, but it's one tiny positive indicator among a sea of neutral indicators up to this point. I generally will always give slightly more benefit of the doubt to anything that pisses off the right-wing nutjobosphere of the internet. So we'll see. All right. You want to talk about the aluminum thing, or we've already gone on for...
No, we don't need to talk about the aluminum.
We'll save the aluminum thing for next time. Next Monday. Maybe we'll know more by then. All right, let me put a little marker here. So far, no side effects from the booster, but just in case I feel bleh later, I want to be able to edit the show quickly. All right. But anyway, things of the day. So, Scott, I have a question for you. What do you think's going on with the ozone layer, like right now in the year 2021?
Does it still exist?
So, yeah, that's have you noticed that...
I thought it's completely gone.
So, have you noticed that, like, no one talks about it on the news anymore?
Yeah, because it's gone, right?
No, we fixed it. That's why it's not in the news anymore. I will link to a video.
What? How
Yes.
do you fix the ozone layer and still have climate change?
Because the ozone layer was not contributing in any significant degree to climate change.
I thought it was deflecting, harmful UV.
It is
rays into
absorbing
space.
UV radiation to basically the primary thing the ozone layer does for the Earth is prevent skin cancer and sunburns.
Right, yeah. But I feel like I'm getting more sunburns.
No, actually, the ozone layer. So what this is, the reason I want to make this my thing of the day is that nobody realizes this, like it wasn't celebrated enough. This did contribute to climate change, just not nearly as much as all the other things going on.
Yeah,
Tiny.
when I was a kid, they acted like the hole in the ozone layer was like the number one terror. Right?
Because at the time it was, partly because unlike climate change overall, which extremely naive, ignorant, and evil people will minimize because they don't perceive it as affecting them directly and personally right now. The ozone layer scared the shit out of people because people have gotten sunburns before. People in Australia could literally say, look, it's getting worse. Like, there was clear preponderance of evidence. It was a real problem that people identified with, partly because the media talked about it a lot. And this video will talk about sort of how that happened. Do you realize the treaty where the nations of the world agreed to ban CFCs, migrate away from them, and take action on the first climate change thing we ever did was the only unanimous vote in the history of the United Nations? Every nation on Earth.
CFCs weren't that important that people had to submit corporate, or maybe that was a lesson learned. The corporate people were like, fuck, we lost that one, and they learned their lesson and they never lost again.
That was part of it. The corporate people realized they lost that one. There were alternatives. They just cost more. But more importantly, the nations of the world were under extreme pressure from the general population of people who had access to media because of this drumbeat of how dangerous the ozone layer depletion was. And it came down to the fact that it affected people directly. There was a clear consensus among media and scientists. There was a specific action that could be taken, and that action did not significantly impact the profits of the companies that have a profit motive. So we succeeded. And actually, the ozone layer, as of now, started healing rapidly as these changes were enacted. And it is on track to, by the year 2060, be literally back at 100% of its efficacy pre-CFCs.
All right, well, it's not preventing any floods from happening, so what good is it?
Because if we had not solved this problem, we would have so many more problems right now.
I suppose.
It's a huge deal. The ozone layer is instrumental in the fact that life even existed on Earth in the first place. So what this means is that, one, we can deal with climate change if the people of the world agree that we are going to deal with climate change, and we force the governments of the world to do it. We can't do it ourselves. We can't force corporations to do it because they don't give a shit. We need to get the governments to take action. And it was able to be done once. I think the main thing that's different now is that during the time of the ozone layer crisis, because it was an imminent crisis, like it was depleting fast, we basically were able to force action partly because there was no counter narrative. There was no government of the world, no political party of a powerful nation like, say, the United States, just saying that this was false. Nobody, even the American Republican Party, did not say that the ozone layer was not depleting. They actually agreed.
Now they probably would be like, there's no such thing as an ozone layer.
They absolutely would. I think the political climate is so much more toxic, especially in America among conservatives, that short of destroying the American Republican Party and parties like it all around the world and ending the global rise of fascism, I don't think we can get the kind of global consensus we got about the ozone layer. And I don't know what to do about that. But at least watch this video. It's only 8 minutes long. And you will see how this was one of the few times in human history the nations of the world got together and did the right thing, and it worked. And I think part of the overarching problem is that we didn't celebrate that and didn't continue to celebrate that enough, and it contributes to this feeling of hopelessness. That's all I got. This is a really good video, and I encourage you to watch it. What do you got?
So there's this guy, Florida man. He's fishing because that's what happens a lot in Florida. There's a lot of fishing down there. He catches a shark, not a huge shark, but it's still a shark technically, right? He's reeling it in. And then a bald eagle comes and grabs the shark. And it was caught on video, the whole thing, and it was a good scene, despite being a scene of Florida man. So. You know, it's worth a watch here. It'll only take a couple minutes, right?
It's Godspeed, bald eagle. I love
Florida man wisely is like, nope, you can have it. It's like let the bird have the.
In the meta moment, the GeekNights Book Club book, Tale of Genji. I'm reading it actually. Gonna do the show probably toward the end of the year or right at the start of the new year, because we tend to skip a bunch of shows during the terminal holidays at the end of the year. But
I only have 2 more days of work, so you know.
Yeah. Our last PAX panel, Atari Game Design, is up on YouTube. I will be by myself at PAX Unplugged just on Friday, just to do a panel at 1 p.m. Rare Game Mechanics. If you are not already planning to go to PAX Unplugged, I tell you straight up, the video of this panel, the slides and everything, will be on YouTube before PAX Unplugged ends for you to watch from the comfort and safety of your home. And yeah, otherwise, let's get right into it. We did a holiday gaming gift guide last week. You can listen to that. And today we're going to do a technology, computing, science, etc. holiday 2021 gift gaming guide.
Now, we did do the gaming one has a lot of overlap with the technology one because video games and technology have a lot of overlap, right? So, for example, we said you could get someone an HTPC, right? Or you could get someone a 3080. It's like, well, those are also great gaming gifts. I mean, tech gifts. Yeah. See, same deal, right? You know.
But I guess we'll try to avoid recapping any stuff that we talked about in that episode. And I think one of the best tech gifts I can think of that I would give to a friend is actually, if you have a friend where you've been in their house or apartment and you see what a technologist would call a dire technology situation, like they've got 20 one-hole USB chargers plugged into like a power strip, or they've got like not an HTPC, but like a proprietary broken streaming thing. Like if you see something in a friend's house or apartment that is easily fixed by a single device that you know exists, one of the best gifts you could buy is to buy the person that gift. Buy them the Anchor, like 10-hole charger to replace the power strip with 10 individual USB chargers on it. I know you've seen those kinds of situations in friends' apartments, and you know.
If someone's a tech person, right, they already know what's going on. But if they're not, and you are, then it's like you can, how many times do I go and talk to people and I'm like, you really should do things this way. It's better.
Oh, that never works. It works on me. It works on a technologist. But your random friend, if you're like, hey, you should really get a USB. They've already tuned out. They've heard it from you before.
Things a certain way. I know it's the better way of doing things, right? But if I try to tell people to do things my way, they just argue and complain, and they don't. They're like, whatever, right? But if it's gift time. If you buy them the thing, they have it now. It's not something for them to go buy, even if you set it up for them, right? Now, they're forced to experience just once or see just once that your way is better.
But you see, this is really a gift for you.
Instead of upset that you were, right?
This is really a gift for you so that the next time you visit them, you don't have to see that problem again.
Right. It's like you tell someone, hey, a 10-hole charger would be a whole lot better than all those, power strip plus all these little individual chargers, and they don't care. But then if you get rid of that thing and put the 10-hole charger there, here, it's a gift for you, then it'll be apparent to them like, you might not get credit for being right, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that they're now using their life has been bettered.
And along those lines, if it's a more advanced gift, and this kind of edges into the ultimate advice we gave during the gaming episode, which I won't spoil. You can go listen to that. But here, you can, if you're willing, this is not for the faint of heart, you could give the gift of, here is the piece of technology that solves your problem, and I will actually, come to your stupid place and actually set it up for you with you. I'll deal with it. I'll set up that wireless router that I bought to replace the, charred, barely working, filled with dust Comcast router that you've been using for 20 years.
Now, if somebody is all obstinate, right, and even gifting it to them won't make them accept your superior technology way of doing things, then what you should do is you should go opposite, right? So let's say somebody...
Go in and sabotage their shit?
No. What you can do, though, is let's say, you're like, hey, you should really use a better word processor than that, old... junky open office or whatever, right? It's old, something like that, and they just won't. Even if you buy them a Microsoft Office subscription or something, then what you could do, you should get that person a typewriter, or a fountain pen, or so, right? Just be like, all right, you don't want the new technology, fine, I'll get you the old technology. Here you go.
That's just a wrapped up middle finger, is what that is.
But maybe they'll they might like that if it
maybe
still could be conceived. I'm not just saying give someone a fuck you gift, right? It still can be conceived as a good gift. Here, have a typewriter, right? It's it works. There's ink, here's paper. Don't give some antique to decorate their house or some bird.
So I had an adjacent idea, but not very similar to what you just suggested. But I aim this more at someone who has kids or a kid one of the coolest gifts you could give to a kid who's the right age and has the right interests is an old piece of technology that could be fun to fuck around with or play with in some way.
Kids are super easy because even if you can't find an old retro computer to give them, like a ZX Spectrum or something, there's so many kid-oriented technology products out there that are somewhere between school and fun. What's that Raspberry Pi that comes inside a keyboard thing?
Oh, yeah.
Model, right? Or, there's just so many out there.
Or even just I once gave a gift to a kid just in high school of an old Atari because we had a bunch of them laying around. And yeah, these are old busted games, but that kid... this was a 6-year-old. They hadn't they didn't have a gaming console. That was some cool piece of technology they could just mess with. And if they break it, who cares? It's an ancient broken Atari.
The Raspberry Pi 400 personal computer kit. That's a gift for a lot of people. If somebody doesn't need any 3D anything, that's, and it doesn't need a laptop, that is actually maybe the best desktop computer, just period, for a lot of people, but especially for a kid who's going to mess around and, have fun with technology and chips and biz.
But there's a big caveat, especially with a kid. If it's anything that could be used for like projects or crafting or something like an Arduino or a Raspberry, you either have to load it up with some interesting experiences that take almost no effort to get going to sort of prime the pump, or you have to also, part of the gift is, hey, I'll help you set it up, or let's play with it together, like get them going. If you just give someone...
You can't just buy the core. You got to get some accessories on there.
Just buying someone an Arduino has bought them an obligation. Exactly. Buying them an Arduino and helping them start the project that's going to be cool, that is a gift. Unless the person said, I want an Arduino, like, obviously.
Yeah, because, if you're buying something that's, complex, it's like, you have to provide enough support that they can actually do something with it, as opposed to just like, what the hell do I do with this? I know I have to go and buy. You get me an Apple II, great, but you didn't give me any drives. There's no drives whatsoever. It's like,
oh, great, an Apple II, a cool old computer. I turn it on, nothing happens. What the fuck is this, Dad?
Yeah, I can code in BASIC in RAM and that's it. It's like, fantastic.
And last one along those lines, if you know someone who has a computer that's perfectly fine for them, but it's got one single spinning disk in it, buy them a cheap SSD and help and sit there and migrate their Windows install to that SSD and walk away from that computer. All they'll know is, yeah, Scott fucked with my computer and now it's 10 times faster and nothing changed.
So if somebody actually knows what the hell's going on about technology, right, there's only really a couple categories of stuff you can get them they're not gonna know or already have or whatever, right? So the first one is basically the expensive category. They didn't buy it for themselves because it cost a fortune.
Yep.
Right? So, for example, get someone a drone, right? Like, what nerd won't love to have a drone?
Yeah, I don't want to spend $300 on a drone, but guess what? If a drone just appeared in this room right now, I'd be outside playing with it right now instead of doing Geek Nights.
It'd be very illegal to do so, but it's like, yeah, I will never buy a drone, but if someone wants to buy me a drone, I will have a lot of fun owning the drone, right?
Yeah. But one of those things that's like...
Even if the price went way down, I wouldn't buy one. But now, I'll take a free one.
You got to be careful, though, because those kinds of gifts can almost edge into what I consider a whole category of tech gifts. The Sharper Image Sky Mall Natural Wonders gift.
You got to get something that's actually good, like drone, not like...
Not the gadgets that you see in that one store in your local...
Okay.
The problem is, even all my references are out of date. Like Natural Wonder, I don't think it's even a store anymore. Kids don't know what Sharper Image is. There aren't even really malls. But if you're old enough, in every mall, in every town, there was that one store that sold weird gadgets, and you could go into the store and play with the gadgets, and your parents never let you buy them. Yeah, all that kind of store. Those kinds of gifts generally suck. They're terrible. Those are the gifts you buy someone who is between... I saw a much less charitable way to describe this, but someone who's like between the age of 45 and 55 and has some money and you don't know what they want, but they're vaguely a yuppie and you buy them something from that catalog, that kind of gift. Those are just terrible gifts. And you got to figure out where's the line between a drone and something from that kind of store.
I think the line is somewhere around portable projector, right? It's
that's a good line.
For most people, that's going to be something they turn on, go, oh, cool, but it's not as good as a TV, and don't use it. But there's going to be that nerd out there who plays fighting games on the wall at the anime con, and they're the portable projector. So,
or you have that uncle who, like the Mr. Dink, who's always showing off the stupid gadget they got. They'll love the shit out of a gift like that, even if they don't actually use it that often. And they'll bring it to other events and show it off. And then they'll always, oh yeah, Scott got me that.
So there's one really good gift. Let's say you know a nerd, and they have a partner or roommate that you don't like. What you should get that nerd is a mechanical keyboard, the loudest one you can get. They'll love the shit out of it, especially if they don't have one already. Once they experience, it's like you could harp on them, right? Like, get a mechanical keyboard. They'll be like, hey, who cares? Once they get one, they'll realize how great it is. They'll use it, but the roommate or partner will be very upset at the noise. Maybe they'll not care, but... Good chance they'll be annoyed by it.
Now, if you know
Better than
someone,
zero.
this edges back into if you've seen their apartment. If someone has like the original Logitech keyboard that like barely works anymore plugged into their computer, get him a mechanical keyboard, but get him one with the quieter keys, so it doesn't annoy anyone. Because one, now they'll get a taste of it, and you'll bring them into the fold. But two, they will, even if they don't say out loud that they appreciate it, when someone types on a real nice keyboard after having used like a crappy old, decade-old, barely functional Logitech keyboard, they'll feel it and they'll feel better about their lives. Like there's a certain...
Right. You could yell at them, you could argue with them till you're blue in the face and they won't give a shit. But then the only time they'll experience it is if you give it to them as a gift. Then they'll experience it and realize you're right. There's no other way. If someone already has a mechanical keyboard, a great gift is if you figure out what aesthetic they like and get them replacement keycaps that are a better kind of plastic. Because I got those for myself.
Yeah.
And, very happy. If someone has a lot of two-factor authentication, you get them some YubiKeys. That's a good gift.
If you have a friend who's really, really not online or like still has photo albums and like can't deal with online photos, one of the easiest tech-adjacent gifts you can get is using one of those myriad online services. Take one of the image galleries you've tried to share with them for the last 20 years and just pay a company to print it out on photo paper and ship it to them in a little photo album.
You could do the reverse. If someone has a bunch of photos, like an old person, right? Don't buy them a scanner. Collect all their photos and take them to a place and pay all the money it takes to get them to digitize whatever it is that they've got, right? Video, old VHS tapes, whatever, and then give them, on a hard drive or a gallery in the cloud or whatever, all their stuff digitized already. You give them the URL as like, the present. Be like, here, click on this link. Oh, look, it's all the old photos and VHS tapes that you had lying around, all digitized already. Done. Right?
Yep, digitizing stuff like that.
I'll be like, thanks. I'm not going to sit there scanning all these photos. What a pain in the ass that is.
Now, along those lines, Luke in the chat mentioned this. I had it on my list. If you're doing that, one of the things that everybody fucks up, especially people who aren't super techie, is they don't have backups of anything. Like, none of their stuff is backed up. Nothing, no technology you try to, like, foist on them will work. But buy them, like, a year-long subscription to one of those cloud backup services that'll just back up a whole single computer.
You could do that. You could also buy someone, if you got a lot of money, buy someone a NAS. Be like, here, a NAS for you. And then they'll realize, like, oh...
Or will they? I have firsthand evidence of people being incapable of using a second storage device they were given as a gift.
Maybe.
They just won't. They just won't. Everything's just on C drive in random places, including root C drive.
Install the program on their computer that syncs to the NAS automatically.
But then you might have opened it up to the Internet of Things. They might then start syncing stuff all around, and if anything goes wrong with that, it'll break. That's why I'm saying, for your sanity.
I use the Synology one. It's just fine.
We'll see. I don't use that actually. It just drives, and that's all it does up there.
I have it synchronized my certain selected folders to the NAS on a regular basis automatically it's completely in the background. It just happens.
But I think buying a subscription to one of those consumer-friendly services that you click a button, install a thing, and it just keeps their computer backed up will probably save them. And also as a side effect of, it doesn't change anything about what they're doing whatsoever. So you're not on the hook to do any support for what you've bought them whatsoever.
So most people out there these days, they might not actually have a computer at all, right? They just got a phone. So your technology gifts are going to be like phone centric, but it's like, what does anyone need for their phone that they don't already have, right? Everyone's got a phone. If they're a case using person, they've got a case. I guess you can get them a newer case if you find one that really matches their aesthetic or whatever. But it's like, what can you get someone for their phone? Right, accessory wise. Well, I think there's two things, and they're both photo related. So it's only good for someone who's taking a lot of photos with their phone or videos with their phone. You want to get those little lenses that attach to the camera on the phone. Those things actually work if you buy good ones, and there's a lot of good ones out there. It's like, you'd be surprised. Like, your phone already has fucking 3 cameras on it. but it's like you want to take a long zoom or a macro photo or something. Those little tiny, annoying little lenses that attach to the back of the phone, they actually work. So not a bad choice. Also, kind of pricey, but you can get those little gimbals, right?
Yeah.
Screw your selfie stick, right? If you want to do steady cam video with a phone, there's plenty of little gimbals you can attach a phone to, and it'll let you do steady cam video with them. They're really good, and they cost maybe a few $100s. They're not that much, not as much as the ones where you have to carry, a full camera on there. And it's like, that's useful for, a lot of people, even if they don't use it that often. It's still really good and really nice. That's another thing that I'll take for free, but I wouldn't buy.
So one that's situational, but I think it's an easy gift because it's the kind of thing where if you have the equipment, it's so easy. But if you don't have the equipment, you almost like don't know how to start. A cheapo sous vide kit, like a sous vide stick for cooking. A lot of people would never think to sous vide food. But if you give them one of those kits that's like the stick and the bucket and like the really easy to use sealable bags, they'll start sous videing because it's so easy, and they'll have a good time.
Maybe. It depends.
I mean, it depends. It can't be a person who like doesn't care about food or a person who like already has a particular way of cooking. Don't get it for someone who has like an Instant Pot because those things can also just do sous vide.
Yeah, I think, also in the category of accessory for the thing the person already has, no one can have too many watch bands for their Apple Watch.
Yeah. If you know someone has a piece of technology, accessories for that piece of technology in general are great gifts.
Yep. If someone doesn't have, even if some people, like I think a lot of people probably have Bluetooth speakers already, but if you know that someone has 0 of them, having one couldn't hurt, even if they don't use it all that often. Doesn't hurt to have one Bluetooth speaker somewhere, right?
Yeah.
It'll come in handy for them at some point.
Yeah, not everyone's like us where I have audio equipment just like brimming out of my closets.
Right. If someone's, someone still has a desktop computer or maybe even a laptop computer, but they're, like actually somewhat of a technology person. I have a USB floppy drive and a USB Blu-ray drive that I expect to be the final floppy and optical disc drives I have for the rest of my life. I expect them to just work, and that way I never had to put one in any computer that I have, because no computer is going to come with a floppy or optical drive probably ever again.
Yeah.
But in case you have a floppy disk somewhere or an optical disk that you encounter, it's really good to have those lying around. If someone doesn't have one lying around or have a friend named Scott they can borrow it from, get them one. And they'll be like, maybe they got a stash of floppy drives from middle school or high school that they can go dig. They'll have a fun time checking out what's on there.
Now, one that, again, this is a more big ticket item, though you can get an old one used. If you know someone who does a lot of outdoor sports and they don't already have a GoPro or they don't have a lot of money, get an old GoPro, like a really old one, like 3, 4, 5 generations back.
They are out now with the GoPro 10.
Yeah, I got a GoPro, 9?
I have a GoPro 5, and you know what? The GoPro 5, it still does like 4K video. It's like, why would I even need the 10?
Dude, my old GoPro that took that old clamshell case around it to protect it still did pretty good video for like what I paid for it.
Right, so they're on the GoPro 10. What is the GoPro 5 going for? Like $100 on eBay, right?
Yep. And you don't have to worry about, like, they don't wear out. The only component in those things that wears out is the battery. And guess what? You can buy bootleg batteries for old GoPros for like nothing.
Yeah, or you can even buy the official. I don't think the battery has changed much.
No.
Don't quote me on that, but I don't think it's changed in quite a while.
It changed between my 2 GoPros, I'm pretty sure, but my first GoPro is like the 2.
Yeah, I mean, the 10 is obviously better than the 5, but it's like, the only real feature of the 10 that it makes a difference for me is like the ability to like do more live streamy stuff.
Yep.
The 5 can't.
But the same thing goes for all sorts. Like if you have an old smartphone and you have a friend who doesn't have any smartphone, you got an old smartwatch and you have a friend who doesn't have any smartwatch, giving someone perfectly good, just out-of-date technology is one, it's good because they can get some use out of it. You're not just throwing it away. But 2,
for the environment.
Yep. it gives them a chance to see if they like that thing at all. Some people like smartwatches, some people don't. If you've never used one, you don't know if you like one or not. And some old LG smartwatch is a great gift to someone who literally doesn't have a smartwatch, so that they'll know if they would use it, like if they want to upgrade, if it's too old and crappy, they'll upgrade. If they don't,
or you might give them a bad impression. Like smartwatches are shitty. It's like, I don't want them now.
I guess you got to find the line.
Yeah.
The problem with smartwatches is the iWatch is the only good smartwatch, and I've been saying that since
the Apple Watch.
The beginning.
There's no such thing as the iWatch.
I mean,
Apple
whatever. It's an Apple Watch. I don't care. It's my iWatch next to my iPhone, my iPod.
Yeah. I think the last thing that I can think of is that if you know what devices the person has, right, there's always going to be like disposable or maybe not necessarily disposable, but like parts that it need, right? So
like you got a friend who has an Oculus or a Valve Index or something, buy him a couple of those gaskets that you can replace every now and then.
Right. Or if you know someone does film photography, buy him film. Film's real expensive and hard to get right now. Just it doesn't even matter what film. Someone's gonna be happy to get any film. Someone's got something that takes batteries. Get the battery that goes in the thing, right? Because the batteries they have are gonna die at some point. SD cards, can never have too many of those.
You got someone who has a bunch of old devices and still uses like AA batteries, and they're just using like actual primary cells. Just buy them like one N loop charger and 8 AA batteries.
Yep, so that's a good one.
I think we've gone on long enough, considering that a lot of what we would say would overlap with the other show.
Sure.
We'll stop right there.
Just randomly stop battery.